Hi everyone in the world of cloud computing, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Cloud Computing Training Show with myself, Brad Nelson, and David Linthicum, the internationally recognised and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialist, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about AWS is expanding AWS Educate to high school students. Hi Dave, great to see you back and welcome to another cloud computing training show.
Yeah, I'm waiting for AWS to start expanding us down into preschool. You know, pretty soon they'll have blocks with little S3 objects on them. You can do cloud architecture with Lincoln Logs, things like that.
Lego, the concept of Lego will never be the same again.
That's right. Sometimes I think that toys are the best design tools for cloud computing.
Yes. It leads on to a nice question actually, Dave. How do you think enterprises will benefit from this get them while they're young approach? And should we encourage 18-year-olds with the skills to pay the bills to go directly into cloud computing workforce?
I think ultimately that enterprises are going to benefit from this because we're going to have more skilled people out there who understand the basics of AWS. And that's probably the most technology skill that's in demand right now in the cloud computing world. And certainly we need some Google stuff and some Microsoft Azure stuff. And now Alibaba Cloud, now that's popped up, as well as some architecture skills and things like that. But the reality is that AWS is the 800-pound gorilla. They're in essence the technology everybody's employing, and people with AWS skills are going to be in high demand. So it's going to be interesting because there's lots of very talented kids in the high schools out there. I've seen them firsthand. And so ultimately, if we give them the tools and AWS is able to fund an educate program where they're able to do programming, they're able to do architecture, they're able to understand the basics of the system, we're going to have someone who's 17, 16 years old and then finally getting ready to go off to college with the capabilities of going out there and making $80,000 in the workplace. And so what do you want to do? Go spend $80,000 a year, to go to colleges and universities? Or do you want to, go off and, start making some real beer money, at 18 years old? I mean, if I got, $80,000 or the equivalent of that, back in 1981 when I got out of high school, that would be a temptation for me. Because ultimately you go to college because that's kind of what's considered as the next step, because that's what you're going to need to get your skills, to get your high paying job. And then ultimately, if I have the skills, then suddenly I'm employed and able to make very good money without actually going to college. And I think we talked about this before. We're seeing kind of the push down of the importance of college within the skill sets out there and basically what people are looking for. That doesn't mean that colleges and universities don't train you with lots of things that you need. I learned, write in college and learned some additional basic skills that allowed me to have to build on my career. However, they're not everything. And so as people understand that their tactical skills are really what people are looking for, whether it's accounting or finance, in this case, AWS, computer science, things like that, this may be a better route for lots of people, in the space who aren't necessarily interested in moving into college, and they build their career based on that. And lots of people are able to do this in this marketplace right now. I know a lot of people who've worked for me over the years who don't have college educations, but they still have the skill sets to make it happen. They just self-taught themselves and were able to talk their way into the first couple of jobs, became rock stars at those jobs, and they built on those skill sets to get into the market. And ultimately, the college degrees really never, made much of a difference. So that's one aspect of it. Enterprises are going to benefit from this because they're going to have people in the marketplace, more people in the marketplace sooner. They're going to have the skills that allow them to implement their AWS implementations. Right now I'm hearing people scream at me that they can't find the AWS people that they need, to roll out their projects. And so that's limiting the projects. There's probably 10 clients that I've had over the last couple of years had to delay projects because they couldn't find the tactical AWS skill sets they needed that they wanted to hire to make any kind of hay in building these systems. And so if it's an 18-year-old, come on, come help us build this stuff, especially if you have the skills to make it happen. And there's lots of, I think, high school students that are going to be just as good, if not better, than a lot of the folks that are coming out of college these days without the AWS skills. And they have to basically go out and get those independently somehow. Hopefully their employer pays for it. But here, AWS is giving you the money. So here, learn AWS, by the way, will turn you into a $60,000 to $80,000 worth person at the end of your 18 years old, and you can get an apartment, get a nice car, and have a very cool early life. versus me. I was eating top ramen and driving a $600 Ford.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you're right. Well, I know you're right, because 18-year-olds, it's an age where people can get so easily distracted with that college time and university and go off the path, as it were. But if you capture that energy at the right time, say 18, look, between just a few years before 18 and getting up to 18 when they're ready to get into the workforce, the aptitude of children and young adults nowadays and people that are in that sort of technology bubble and have only ever known iPads and technology, it's a fantastic opportunity because their learning curve is that much better than everyone else's with embracing things. The employees or enterprises, as we're talking about, are going to benefit hugely from a workforce that is purely got to focus on delivering, because they're taught that through these courses. Because although it's the technology based around AWS, there is always that case of you must deliver. You have SLAs, so it's kind of inherently put into them, as it were. It's not an inherent factor of what they know, but it is when they start on the course. It becomes an automated system for them to want to deliver and want to optimize everything, because they don't know any different. That's all they know because of their technology driven into that AWS Educate program, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing that's kind of interesting here is that I think AWS did this moving down to the high school level because they, quite frankly, were frustrated with the colleges and universities out there. A new survey, came out by Clutch, a research firm out there. Basically, they looked at the different colleges and universities, and they said, we're not going to cover cloud because it's too expensive. We can't do it. It's, we're not going to be able to keep up, yada, yada, yada. And the reality is, I think that, folks like Microsoft and AWS were willing to provide the money to make it happen, but there's so much of a bureaucracy in the colleges and universities out there. I think that AWS just got frustrated with implementing their direct technology skills into the colleges and universities. And so AWS said, the heck with it. We'll go deal with the high schools. We'll get them before they go to college and maybe even prevent them from going to college, because we're going to give them skills that are going to be able to, get them great jobs right out of high school. And I think that's, that's a good move for AWS. They're doing it for their own selfish interest because they get more people out there in the workspace. We're able to build AWS systems, and they're able to sell more cloud. And, Apple's done this before with their, programs where they gave, computers to elementary schools in the United States, and there's lots of other technology companies that have played this game before. But this is absolutely brilliant in terms of AWS's part, because you're going to spend $1 to train somebody in a high school, and you're going to get probably $20, $30 back once that person gets out with those skills. Because chances are they're going to use the technology if they become a user of the technology, but more often than not, they're going to be the people that are able to build the solutions, the people who are able to do the tactical things, they're able to deliver. And that's what's missing now. We have lots of people who are able to define and talk about concepts and, talk about, finance and OpEx versus CapEx, and tell you the difference between hybrid and public and private cloud. But there's very few people out there that actually know the particular skills, in this case, AWS, the Azure skills, the Google skills, things like that, to actually make things happen. And so we're getting up to the line of scrimmage with lots of these different projects. It's a football term, by the way. And we're unable to, in essence, get things forward because we don't have the people that can actually do the real work. And I think that's got to change. And I think what AWS is saying, well, guess what? We're going to shotgun this stuff out there. We're going to give lots of people money for training. We're going to create lots of people who are able to make this happen. We're going to benefit those people. That's absolutely the case. We're giving them the training. In other words, the high schools are giving them the training, and AWS is funding it. But everything's going to come back to us in terms of our technology. So guess what? Microsoft do the same thing. Google do the same thing. Alibaba do the same thing. Oracle do the same thing. You have plenty of money. IBM do the same thing. Let's train, these kids at the high school level in different kinds of cloud technology, whatever ones they want to learn. I wouldn't recommend that they learn all of them, but we'll release lots of people out there even if they go to college, they're going to be head and shoulders above, that of their peers who are basically trying to figure out cloud computing, which is becoming the way in which we're doing computing. It's just going to be computing someday. And then ultimately able to also, monetize this into a jumpstart of a career if they choose to do it. And I have no problem with them not going to college. I would hire somebody who didn't go to college all day long if they have the skills in order to make it happen. That's because I'm selfish. I want people to work for me are going to have the best productivity.
Yes, and you're right. I mean, you jumped in just when I was about to add there that everyone's going to, pile into this, aren't they, eventually? And there will be a whole choice system where people at 16 years of age can fork into AWS, or they can fork off into, I said fork off into, I'll do that, fork off or fork off that way. So, they're going to have a choice to fork to AWS, Google, Azure, Alibaba or Ali Cloud, Microsoft. There's going to be that choice, isn't there? The whole educational system for children, growing up the computer science is going to be influenced at a younger age for people to get that focus. But is it healthy though? Is it healthy for companies or corporations to get people, and I'm talking from a holistic point of view, just as we're talking now, is it healthy for them to get to people at such a young age as 14-year-olds, to get them into the corporate wheel of defining who they are and who they want to be based on that form of channel of education? Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. They're going to make their own decision. There's a lot of, I think most high school kids won't choose to go down this line of work because they're looking to do something else. They want to do art, they want to do music, they want to do things they may not end up doing, but they're interested in other things other than computer science. So I think number one, it's a subset of kids. It's not going to be basically all the kids in these organizations. So what we're doing is just giving them a choice. So if you want to learn this stuff, we'll go ahead and give you the training for free, but you have to have the motivation to make it happen. And the other thing too, at the high school level, I would make this a very tough program. And if you're unable to really kind of cut it, in terms of your ability to do the work and keep up with the homework and get the projects done, things like that. I was a college professor for 10 years, so I had this problem in spades. Then you go, and we'll let somebody else come into the organization or come into the program and let them train, or not. And so and I don't believe that we're going to send people in the corporate workforce at 14, 15, and 16 years old. I do think 18, 19 years old is old enough to make a decision as to what you want to do with your life, or at least the first steps of your life. I mean, we always end up doing something different, later in our careers than we started out with. And I think, I started out as a programmer, right out of college, because I learned programming in college, but I didn't learn the languages that I actually used in my job. So I had to pick that stuff up through training that they provided me, to get going. And of course, I had the same problem that AWS is having. Colleges and universities weren't able to keep up with what the latest and greatest stuff was. And so therefore, I had to learn the latest and greatest stuff after I got out of college, after I went ahead and paid for college. Well, back then, college was, $2,000 a year, for tuition. Now it's, $80,000, $100,000 a year in a lot of these private schools. And so the value that they provide is really being called in question as to what we're going to get from that value as we go out into the workforce. And I'm not anti-college. I'm just anti-inefficient college. I want colleges to basically adjust to the needs of the skill sets that are in demand out in the space, because I'm looking to build valuable people that go out into the world. I'm not looking to build philosophy majors and history majors and things like that where you can go out and you can't really get a job. Not that those are bad majors, but in terms of monetizing that into something you can make a living at, it's very difficult. And we're seeing this now. We have people launched with $400,000 or more in college debt, and they can't get a job because they took theater arts or something that there's really not a lot of opportunities out there for it to be successful. So technical careers are always going to have the capability and the ability to basically pay bills. If you're a technician and you understand technology, just like if you understand healthcare, you understand geology, you have a very technical, finite, well-defined skill, people are going to pay you to basically practice that skill within the organization. So the more we can build those skills out in the marketplace, I think the better things are going to be for both the people who are making the money, or people who are in the marketplace, and as well as the enterprises out there. Because the more people out there, we can pay a little less for that. We also have the available skills that's not going to hinder our progress made in the cloud computing space. And it's going to be a much more healthier environment. So applaud AWS for this. I mean, they're doing this for their own selfish reasons, of course. I don't think they're doing this for charity. But I think that ultimately this is about something that's going to benefit AWS first and foremost, but also the high schools and most importantly, the students out there, the young people out there that are trying to get their careers launched.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was going on a holistic approach. I completely agree with you. The 18-year-olds, they're at a choice. They've got to make their own decisions. I was just fearful that 14-year-olds getting pushed into an AWS career was not fair. But saying that, I mean, children are making the decision to understand why they're playing the games on their iPads. You know, the app development side of things. They're getting online, they're developing games, they're making a decision to develop in that respect. You know, at 10 years old, 9 years old. You know, they're understanding that they get these games work. How do they work? You know, we enjoy playing them. Why do we enjoy playing them? You know, why do we have to pay for diamonds or gold coins, or how does that work? We get the game for free, but they want $5 for 1,000 gold coins or something. You know, so what I'm saying is, the choices and decisions are choices and decisions that when we were that age, we didn't have any concept of that sort of thing. They're already experiencing concepts and decisions and questions about their embracing and their involvement technology that, you know, for us it's difficult. We're playing catch up in some respects because they're so in tune with using these products, so in tune with, you know, playing these games. They're already asking better questions. So I think AWS, like you've said as well, are second guessing where the education market is going with regards to producing a focused employee by 18 years of age.
Yeah, and I think it's going to change the way we look at education and the way we train people, and also the opportunities out there. I think education out of the public school space is just way too expensive and doesn't provide enough value. And I think that their ability to find alternate ways of training. We're already dealing with online colleges, universities, and I did 18 courses out on lynda.com, and lots of places you can go and get some very good content and understand certain areas of the business. But it has to be driven by yourself. You have to have an interest in making that happen. You have to have the fire in the belly to move forward. But I don't think you need to have you need to have a fortune of money, to make it occur. I think this stuff ultimately is commodity. It should be almost free. We should be able to do this stuff on demand as we need it, automated in terms of testing, automated in terms of skills transitions, things like that, and not necessarily factoring humans completely out of it, but ultimately learning is going to be at a pace-based system. It's going to be at what you find most effective to you and how you learn. I learn differently than you do. I find classroom training just boring. I find myself, turning off, the instructor, right away. And of course, as an executive, I have to attend classes all the time and whatever. And it's just not a good way for me to learn. However, if I was able to kind of, go at my pace and read something and, basically look at it and ask a question and move off in different directions with different stimulus, I would learn much better. So I can force myself to learn in a classroom, but it's not necessarily the way I learn. And I think everybody else is finding that out there as well. So this is about not only understanding that we're getting to technical skills, but all, versus, just the same old traditional stuff we're learning in high school, which I think is important as well. You have to read, write, be able to spell and add, subtract, multiply, divide. And I haven't found a use for algebra yet. So I would say you don't need to understand that. But ultimately, this is about consuming education in the way that's most effective for you as the consumer of education. And this is about doing so in an automated way that's going to be very economically feasible in terms of how you pay for it. So you may not have on a dorm room or, the bar on campus you're able to go to, but I think it's going to be a much more effective way moving forward. So I don't think college and university is going to go away, but I think that we're going to find that lots of different things are going to take their place over the next 10 years, and they're going to be diminished. Very much like bookstores.
Yeah, I agree. For people that are in that educational remit at the moment and going through the cycle of education, that's fine. They've got all this to look forward to. But, if someone, say for argument's sake, is not in a position educationally to go on an AWS course, you've done some great courses on lynda.com, and there's a link in the description to this video below. So people could, in effect, it doesn't matter really what age, does it? People, as long as people understand and they're embracing education and there's a reason why they're doing it, they could be ahead of their game anyway just by doing a few of your courses. You could have a 15-year-old that's pretty well versed in AWS even before his course starts.
Yeah, and there's hundreds of computing courses out there and hundreds of cloud courses out there, and you go down whatever path you're looking to go down. And there's, stuff on YouTube that's actually amazing. I've found a lot of and questions answered that, quite frankly, I couldn't find articles about. Just people showing me doing the demonstration of a particular technology on YouTube in terms of machine learning and deep learning and things like that are new. So all of these different alternatives are popping up in terms of how we're able to see things. And I think getting into the mind and getting to accommodating the on-demand universe, which is what we're getting into, the on-demand human, which is what we're getting into. We watch Netflix on demand. We watch this video. You and I watch this video cast you and I are doing right now on demand when we choose to do it. And I think we're going to have education in the same way. And I think that's great. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's not going to be diminished improvements. A more effective way to educate people. The more educated people we have out there, the better we'll do.
Absolutely, Dave. Thanks again for being part of the Cloud Computing Training Show this week. It's a really interesting point we've brought up with the AWS Educate system for high school students. I think there's some real value there, and hopefully there's people that are students that are about to embark on this sort of thing, and they get some value out of our little show this week.
Yeah, I think they heard $80,000 career, so we're gonna have a lot of 18-year-olds out in the marketplace buying cars and getting apartments, things like that. Probably gonna be a very noisy neighborhood in the next couple of years.
Well, yeah, and they'll also be, let's hope because they've got all that money, they don't develop some form of drink problem.
You got to have a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, we're always crying out for AWS skilled people, and I think it's something, from my point of view, being involved in recruitment, it's great to nurture and get that young talent out there, get them employed, get them satisfied, get them happy, and make sure that they're embark on this journey into their lives on the best foot forward, so they can move forward and be happy, essentially, that their education is giving that return on investment, not only financially but also from a fulfillment point of view. I think that's very important, and we need more AWS people, like we will need more Alibaba people, more Google, more Microsoft people, the list goes on. We need more cloud people, full stop, don't we?
So you think this will be the next wave out, the millennials? This will be kind of the millennials have a certain attribute toward them, and these folks who get training in high school will have a certain attribute toward them. Do you think that we'll see a change in what young people are?
Yeah, I think the dynamics of the psychology will change, because there's going to be, and it is like you say, we can't use a too broad a brushstroke on this one, but there's a certain sector of people that shine an interest towards technology, developing the next big SaaS platform or whatever it would be, and I think you're going to have people more focused quicker on an outcome to further their life, because I think a lot of people fantasize and are affected greatly by looking at the celebrityism of pressures that are put upon them to live a certain lifestyle, to be able to perform a certain way, to deliver a certain appearance to others in a social economic situation. So I think if we can get younger people involved and focused, and they're getting a return on their lives as well as the company getting a return on the investment into their education, I think that's a turning point there. That there was never really, okay, we've had apprentices before and apprenticeships where companies invest it, etc. But this is something, I think this goes to a next level where you're getting into a tech company that wasn't there before. It wasn't there before. Yes, you could become an electrician, a carpenter, etc., and a trades through apprenticeship, amongst other things. But with the tech world, the salaries there. Definitely the need for key people is there as well, and I think kids know that. I think they're switched on enough because they have got that on-demand media. They do know what's going on more than anyone, particularly if they've got an interest in something, and they can become educated that bit quicker. They're just more sponge-like. They have more time to research. They're not distracted by working for someone or families or other commitments. They can either do two things. They can go and hang out around the street corner, or they can focus and soak everything up and be very good at a young age.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to watch this thing fold out, because we're making some very aggressive predictions now, you and I, and we'll see whether this happens or not in the next 2 or 3 years. As people start, going through the program, 14, 17, 18 years old, and how this affects, their college careers, and how this affects people who are basically getting into the college, but also how it affects the enterprises out there. And maybe if they see a benefit from this, more money flows into the public school system and the college system to make sure there's more of this going around so we can enable more people to go out and make good decisions for themselves. We're in essence giving them an opportunity to be successful. We're not pushing them to be successful. They have to take the initiative to learn. You can't force them to learn. So we'll see how many people take the initiative to learn.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a real turning point in the world of education. I do believe that. I really do believe that. It's like, you know, when Jeff launched Amazon to start off with, he was selling books, you know, and again it was one of those things. People, you know, laughed at that and said, well, where's that going to go? He kind of, I'm not saying he's made this decision to put Amazon or AWS into schools, but it's that pivotal point of change that can make so much difference to, you know, like it did the e-commerce world, but equally to the educational facility for people and getting them focused, maybe out of trouble, saving lives, possibly saving families, and building a generation that have got that focused and focus on delivering outcomes. So
we're going to go anti-millennials, what you're saying?
I don't know about anti-millennials, but no, I don't think. I think there's lots to embrace with regards to the millennials, and I think but we have to embrace what's happening as much as we can. And I think everyone's got their position, everyone's got their place, and everyone brings a value. Like I said to you earlier off camera, you know, we're all on this journey, and it's appreciating each other's values and where we're at in our lives in order to complement that and help along the journey in any which way we can, you know.
Absolutely. So we'll see where this goes.
Thanks, Dave. Really great to have you on the show again. It's been quite a long show this week, so it's a good one. We're almost double time as usual.
I didn't even realize it.
We were enjoying ourselves too much. Well, thanks again for your time, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Go get trained.
Well, thanks again for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed our show. Dave and I obviously did. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel, and that way you won't miss out on future shows coming up between David and I, and also the weekly cloud computing news. You can find David on Twitter, which is @DavidLinthicum, and also myself on Twitter, which is @Nelson_Hilliard. Thanks again for watching.